set aside so as to go still deeper. Finally comes the finest of the levels of individuality, the sattvic buddhi. The distinction between the sattvic buddhi, which is like the balanced wisdom, and purusha, which is consciousness. Here in the sutra, one not only experiences the discrimination between the subtlest aspect of mind and consciousness itself, purusha. This distinction becomes well established. With that comes mastery. When the subtle most distinct has happened and is well established, there comes mastery over all forms or states of existence, as well as over all forms of knowing. When even its finest distinction between sattvic buddhi and purusha is set aside, there comes absolute realization, or kaivalya. Declining celestial invitations. The invitations of the disembodied or celestial beings for experiences or powers are declined. That sounds really scary. To one well established in the knowledge of the distinction between the purest aspect of mind and the consciousness itself, there comes supremacy over all forms or states of existence, as well as over all forms of knowing. So he talks about reaching the finest level of mind. In the preceding sutras, many types of experience were described. As these are encountered, the yogi goes ever deeper into the levels of his or her own being. Each is encountered, explored, experienced, and set aside so as to still go deeper. Finally comes the finest level of all levels of individuality, the sattvic buddhi. Here in this sutra, one not only experiences the discrimination between the subtlest aspect of mind and the consciousness itself, purusha. The distinction becomes well established. With that comes mastery. When the subtlemost distinction has happened and is well established, there comes mastery over all forms or states of existence. He's just repeating himself. Initially, buddhi is utilized as the means that decides, judges, and discriminates. When this discrimination is clouded, we act out of our habit patterns, not from choice. Eventually, we come to see that it was buddhi who carved up consciousness and the universe in the first place, experiencing the many dualities. Here, when the sutra speaks of discriminating between buddhi and purusha, this is what is being addressed. It is not referring to buddhi at the surface level, such as deciding what is useful and not useful in our life activities. Rather, it is the subtlest aspect of buddhi that is being discriminated as different from purusha. This is the discrimination that leads towards liberation. As with the other subtle experiences, this is seen as both an attainment and an obstacle and is set aside with non-attachment. Should I keep going?
Was that 51?
No, that was 50. Oh.
50, okay.
Okay. I thought I was reading 49. Should I go back? Let me go back.
No, I think, did you guys do 49 yesterday after I left?
Yeah.
I think so.
We did.
Oh yeah, that's a short one anyway. Okay. Do you have in the other book anything on this one that's different? On 50?
I can look up. I can look up centering yoga. It's not that long, so I'll read it. One knowing the difference between truth and shadow cast by the sun is all knowing and masters all states of becoming. Patanjali's system rests on one fundamental idea: the mind, freed from the distractions of external sensory stimulation, can turn toward indwelling truth. The mind can begin to watch its own movements and understand how past experiences colored its own ability to understand both itself and the world around it. In a very real sense, it can come to see why it sees as it does. When we understand why we relate to both the external world and to ourselves as we do, influenced by our entire storehouse of mental impressions, we can begin to put these those impressions into their proper places. In this newly clean setting, we can begin to see truth, or sattva. Patanjali says that although we might be satisfied to hold on to this clear vision, we should not become attached to this stage of knowledge. In interpreting the sutra, Carrera said sattva is a vision, seeing in a perfectly clean mirror, but it is still only a reflection of our true self. Ouch. We are asked to move beyond the reflection and to see directly. The Purusha, or self, implies a standing tall. It can even mean the shadow cast by a sundali's stylus or gnome. The literal meaning of the Greek gnome is one who knows or examines. In this interpretation, it's translated Purusha as the shadow cast by the sun, to emphasize the kind of knowing that can only occur in the full light of day. We can only recognize our truest identity when the sun has burned away the shadows of desire and fear. With the clouds removed, we can at last see the difference between the shadow and that which casts it. Patanjali calls this person of clear vision Anya Khatimatrasya, or literally, other see small part. Other see small part. The person of refined sight sees the smallest of distinctions, becoming aware of the otherness of the mirror's reflected image, turning away from otherness and towards the oneness of the object of the mind's reflection. We are all knowing. This mastery means that we are equal to firm ground after our vision is cleared. We are the tall gnome, casting the sun's shadow, knowing the seemingly insubstantial shadow side of ourself as the true anchor to hold us firmly to where we stand. As I wrote in the conclusion to my overview in Sutta 346, we are becoming, but we have the power to move towards being. It is mastery over the ever-changing states of becoming that gives us this power to stand tall in the bright light of day.
When they said gnome, you mean like name in Latin, or you mean like a little garden gnome?
I think it's not spelled like, it's Gnomon.
Okay.
Gnomon.
Yeah.
All right.
New
I'm
one.
gonna look it up.
I mean, that makes sense.
I like what he said. I can't even find it, but we're not to get attached because it's still the reflection.
Yeah.
Like like I most of us experience that, like where we get in the very beginning when you start like going through certain things, you're like, oh, and then you realize, no, that's not it either.
I know, it keeps getting more and more subtle, right? Like you think you've gotten some kind of level of attainment, and then you're like, there's that other thing underneath.
Oh, it says the term is used for a variety of purposes in mathematics and other fields. It is the part of a sundial that casts a shadow.
Oh, okay. All right. Different context.
Yeah, it's spelled different, but I don't know how to say it.
I get it. It casts a shadow. It's like another thing that's sort of like blocking us from the light of the self. That makes sense. All right, you ready for the next one, which is kind of creepy?
Oh, great.
When invited by the celestial beings, no cause should be allowed to arise in the mind that would allow it either acceptance of the offer or the smile of pride from receiving the invitation, because to allow such thoughts to arise again might create the possibility of repeating undesirable thoughts and actions. Declining celestial invitations, as discrimination becomes increasingly finer, the levels of the subtle realm are experienced, including encounters with the disembodied or celestial beings. They might invite the sadhaka practitioner with the experiences of the subtle realm. These invitations, experiences, or powers are distractions which block the realization of the true self, which is beyond all experiences. Therefore, the invitations are declined in a spirit of non-attachment, as are the other subtle experiences. A greater experience brings greater attachment. Think of enjoyable experiences in the external world. Is it not true that the more enjoyable the experience, the more we cling to it and want to repeat it? One of the heights of the subtle experiences is the encounter and welcome of the celestials. However, you may personally conceptualize such beings. Thus, it is one of the stronger distractions that we face on the inner journey. We might feel a strong visceral response to the suggestion that we turn away from such experiences. For this reason, it is essential that we continue to cultivate this discrimination to properly choose what path to follow, what path to let go. Disembodied or celestial beings. I wish there was more clarity on that. Who are these celestial beings? Like ghosts?
Should
Are
I?
they like Indra, the god of water, or rain? It's like, what are they talking about? Does the other book say anything? Or what was the book you were reading, Jackie? Carrera's book?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to line up though. I'm very confused.
What
I've
does he say for 51?
Look the same.
Or 52, I mean. He says the same about the celestial beings?
52. Practitioners who have achieved a high degree of spiritual maturity often attract the admiration of others, whether they are celestial beings or our fellow earthbound humans. The ego loves to be stroked and praised. We are warned not to let these overtures distract us from attaining self-realization. The celestial beings were unenlightened yoga adepts in a former life. Their overtures may be motivated by envy of the progress the yogi has made. Enlightenment cannot be achieved until Viveka takes us beyond time and matter. The next 4 sutras offer a detailed description of this profound degree of discriminative discernment.
That's even freakier. So it's dead yoga practitioners trying to mess with you.
Yeah. Unenlightened
Is it, did I hear that?
in a formal life. Their overtures may be motivated by envy of the progress the yogi has made. You serious? What?
So these are bad guys? These are guys who were adepts but not real
But never
serious.
hit enlightenment. The thing is, so here we go. I've read and I've heard from teachers that if you get caught in a ghost state, it generally means that you have some form of like very, very severe attachment to something material. So like the Hindu religion, you always burn the body before you say the rites, because the soul can get very attached to the body and then get stuck because the attachment is so severe. So like the yogis are supposed to be cultivating this sense of non-attachment, and then at the time of death, whatever you have attached to, you get like dragged into your next lifetime. But for some, I know this is like a polarizing topic. For some, it might be somebody who committed suicide. They were so attached to not being embodied that they disembody, and then they sort of get stuck as, I guess, like in Catholicism, they would say limbo.
Yeah.
Between worlds. And the yogis say that about, they do say ghosts exist, like, but the only like the Jnani tradition I've studied in, the intellectual tradition, this is like the first I've ever heard them reference any kind of ghosts. Like the Bhakti tradition, the devotional tradition, they have these conversations where like they'll say like, if there's a ghost in your house, just chant the Maha Mantra, and like in the like drumming up of that energy, they get run out or something like that. Like if you exist in that Shiva energy of like destruction and annihilation and dissolution, then it's going to draw them to you. But if you exist in the energy of sustaining and, you know what I mean, then like the whole Krishna energy is like that which sustains life. It pushes out that, I don't know, it's disconcerting to, like, maybe they were, I don't know, who were they? I don't know, bad yogis, maybe materialists using whatever we're learning to like cause harm, and then so stuck on the materialism that they, yeah, I'm definitely not interested in meditating and having some ghost give me invitations. That's like really horrifying. Should I move on to the next sutra, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a basic question. Can somebody define, is it cities? S-I-D,
Cities,
H-I,
yeah,
cities.
psychic powers. So like, you know, the ones we're reading about where you can get very light or know everything about the
Oh, okay.
cosmos, or yeah, that was the last chapter.
And those are the ones we're not supposed to be all excited about because, or get too attached to.
Right.
When it happens, I'll let you guys know.
Okay. Yeah. Not supposed to get attached, otherwise you never hit enlightenment.
So maybe that's where these bad guys are. They were having too much fun with it and messing around with it, and they just never moved on.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe that's what they're inviting you to do too.
Oh, temptress. Oh.
Right, they're saying like these celestial experiences or whatever. I just wonder what that means.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. I'll read the next one? Or wait, sorry, go ahead.
I can read this. It's short. I'm trying to but I can't understand it either. Maybe if I read it out loud. The previous sutra wait, let me make sure I'm on the 352, right? I'm not reading the wrong thing. The previous sutra implied a state of completion, oneness and unity with all. But here Patanjali says, be careful with your sense of achievement. There may still be dangers lurking. Specifically, he warns of the trap created by pride in our own accomplishments. Sthani, S-T-H-A-N-I, I think, or those who stand high is derived from sta, which means to stand, and is sometimes translated as celestial beings or angels. Vyasa indicated that the sthani are the spirits of yogis who, failing to reach their final goal, exist as elements, hidden in nature and feeling envy toward those of more advanced spiritual attainment. But whether the sthani are guardian angels or spirits of ill content, the warning is the same. Do not smile with pride if they offer their admiration or invitations. The reasoning behind the sutra is simple. Over glad acceptance of praise for our achievements moves us away from our true goal of oneness, instead stepping us closer to attachment. We can come to mistake the process for the outcome. It is not what we can do that is important, only what we become. Patanjali says that to avoid becoming caught up in undesirable outcomes, to avoid once again igniting our feelings of separation, an attitude of humility and self-depreciation, depreciation, is beneficial. We all have a tendency to cling to our traditions, heritage, and practices for their own sake, rather than using them as the tools that they are. But if we are rough-cut wood, being slowly smoothed into form, then we should sharpen our chisels, but treat them as the tools that they are. If others comment on our skilled hands, the appropriate response is to turn their attention back to the form emerging from the wood.
Okay, that makes more sense in like context of what celestial beings are. Okay, so yeah, so you know how like in reincarnation they say that you, like, every single being that's alive has a soul, is Atman, like a blade of grass, a tree, you know, and slowly they evolve up the chain, a pig, a cow, a person. Like this is a very high birth because you can become aware of self and hit enlightenment, but there are higher births than this, they say, like the devas, which are like the controllers of nature. And like different planetary systems and things like that. So maybe that's what they mean. I guess like if you don't hit it, you might end up reincarnating as a god or goddess or something like that. I'm like remembering a lecture from probably like 15 years ago. I might be exaggerating, but it was a long time ago, and he was talking about how you hear these stories in the Vedas about like the god of whatever, the god of rain, and people would get mistaken that they were like these eternal beings, but they're not. They're just another reincarnation, and they are due to the same material influences as birth, sustaining, and death. Even like they talk about Brahman, which is the creator and organizer of a universe, that even that is a reincarnation that is due to like the beginning, the sustaining, and the death of something. I don't know. Like that's a very personified viewpoint of the world. So like I again, I haven't like had a lot of study in it on the non-personified, which is like more what I identify with. So I can't speak to like gods and goddesses. That like kind of gets out of my wheelhouse. But that's what the Bhaktis say. They'll say that like there are all these universes. This is not the only universe, and the universe starts, it's sustained, and then it implodes on itself, and then it starts again, and that's kind of like what quantum physics teaches us too, about the nature of the universe constantly expanding and contracting. Like it's a cyclical thing. Like the Big Bang, some people argue recently, it wasn't necessarily from nothingness to somethingness, it was like an expansion. And there's also going to be a contraction. Like right now we're in this section of time where the universe is expanding. So I always think of Brahman like that. So I guess like, you know, okay, so we're incarnated as human beings, which we take as personification in a certain way. Like I have eyes that can see, I have ears that can hear, I have personality in that way. But then you think about like, what if you incarnate as a blade of grass or like an ant? Then your perceptive vehicle is very different. And like, even though you're in it and you think that that's the world, you are still something beyond that body. So like, I guess if like we're detaching from the personified version of it, like personified doesn't necessarily have to mean like human person, like, oh, I'm a big person in the sky now making universes. Like it could be that the energy of the soul sort of accesses that sort of creation point, and it has a different vessel now. So yeah, I don't know. I'll read the next sutra. It's like kind of far out there, right? By Samyama, are we at 53?
Yes.
Okay. By Samyama, over the moments and their succession, there comes the higher knowledge that is born from discrimination. Experience usually comes like a movie. It only appears to be an unfolding process, whereas it is actually independent events. It is like the movie film being many independent frames, all of which coexist on the same reel. However, when you look at those frames sequentially, there is an appearance of a uniform and unfolding event or process. When samyama is done on the moments and the process of succession, the higher knowledge of what is really going on is revealed. One comes to see the nature of movie production of the mind and virtually the whole of the creation process. This opens the door to realization of the truth. This applies to all types of objects. Throughout the Yoga Sutras, particularly chapter 3, there are many different objects mentioned for exploration and setting aside, so as to go past ignorance, and false identities to the true self. However, every one of those objects, regardless of its type or subtlety, is constructed in the same way, being moments of experience coming together in succession. Thus, this process of applying samyama to moments and succession is an extremely subtle and far-reaching practice affecting all possible sequences or of experience or thought. I've sort of experienced this one like fleetingly, where you get ahead of like time is not real. It's like a weird, you know, we sort of construct the world as like ducks in a row. Like, oh, this was my past. This is what happened in the past. This is my future, and that's what's going to happen in the future. And like, I could try to plan what's going to happen in the future, but it's actually all happening. Like, did you guys see that thing that they released? I think it was the CIA of like that were in a hologram. Did you guys see the graph?
No, I didn't see that.
So I've had these like really deep conversations with Ali Kornbluth because she was in Israel studying Kabbalah, which is like the esoteric teachings of Judaism. And I remember we had this conversation once about time, and she said the way they teach it in the Kabbalah is that it's actually this like spiraling cone that sort of folds back onto itself.
Mm-hmm.
Where we think it's a linear thing, it's actually like all happening at once in this like funnel. And that diagram that the CIA let out, it was a funnel going up about the hologram that we're existing at. I thought it was so fascinating that it like corresponded to that conversation we had such a long time ago. And like in meditation, you can kind of get glimpses of this where like it dawns on you. It's a very bizarre, it's like, I haven't made sense of it yet, but yeah, this is like a bizarre thing. It's hard to get your mind out of that mindset because we want to control. We want to say, I want this to happen in the future. I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and I'm going to get here. But we come through to learn through experience that it's like, you can do everything you want to do. It's going to happen the way it's going to happen. Like most times there's like nothing you can do to affect the outcome of something. I always tell young girls this, like you already made a contract with your future lover. Like you guys are going to meet each other. There's nothing you can do about it. You're going to end up together. There's nothing you can do about it. You might as well enjoy your life. Stop focusing on that. Like live your life, get an education, like there's this sort of, I don't know, destiny to things. I think it's like what you talk about, Jackie, where like you just sort of like flow through life. You're like, why do I have to, it's going to happen. Like we can either be, or we can be easeful. And I think that's what this realization, like when you do some yama on this, I think that's what that realization brings, that you may as well let go a little bit and relax. That was hard during this particular time with the virus and the war and the everything. I have to keep remembering. Thoughts? Other translations?
I can read. It's pretty short too. In an earlier sutra, Patanjali's traditional commentators pointed to the relationship between past, present, and future, saying that although the past strongly influences our present, it does not have to set us on a predetermined path into the future. In other words, each moment of now is an opportunity to rest our own destiny. In this sutra, Patanjali speaks again of this present moment, the ksana, or instant in which we find ourselves. He says that although each moment is striding through time, or in sequence with those moments past and yet to come, the only instant of time which we can directly experience is the present one. Our experience of the flow of time, he implies, is only a mental construction based on memory of the past and anticipation of the future. In a way, he challenges us. Show me a moment, past or future. If we accept the task, we will search only to find the present existing as a concrete object of experience, with past and future as a mere shadow of this. Understanding this, we are asked to seek out oneness with now, and in doing so, we are promised rich rewards. We will gain the knowledge of discrimination, of real from unreal, of permanent from fleeting. We will find the ability to sift wheat from chaff, which is born from clear vision. The commentator Vaksapati said the Vivekajam leads us to acquire knowledge of all regarding this present moment. Not knowledge of all moments, not the ability to see unerringly into the future, but instead to have complete knowledge of our own direct experience in the here and now. If this moment is all that we have, then knowing it fully really is knowing all.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like this moment transcends all the other ones because the other ones are sort of like a hologram.
Mhm.
Maybe it doesn't make sense, but
Well, it's the only days that I've had, like I've had days which weren't a lot, but I've had days where I was able to just like be during all this whole mess, and that's because I was here. Now, I wasn't worried about what's gonna happen tomorrow and next week and next year and whatever, or like what happened last week and what I read last week, or like it's the simple of being in the present moment, which is so darn hard.
yeah.
Well, you guys were talking. There's 3 cats who I think were from the same litter, or one might have been the mom of 2 of them. I'm not sure. One is clearly the boss, who wander around the neighborhood, and they kind of own the neighborhood. And they're very nice cats, except for their cat hair. But I was looking at them. They were about 6 feet away from me, and they were ignoring me. Talk about living in the moment. They have a routine because they do kind of every morning at about this time. If I'm sitting in this chair, I see them right over there. This is part of their prowl right over. So they have a routine, and the routine has come out of their past, I guess, and familiarity. But they are so right now in the moment. It's amazing. So I want a little bit of the cat brain on that, because that's amazing stuff. They are not sitting there obsessing about, should I go to Costco or not, or should, that kind of thing. Do I need another bottle of tomorrow? That kind of thing. They're not obsessing at all. They're just sitting there licking their fur and cleaning up.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Just doing the task at hand.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're coming to listen to the Yoga Sutras every morning, I guess.
Honest to God, if I sit out here, they ordinarily don't, our chairs are covered with cat hair because I didn't put the covers on last night, and they clearly enjoyed our deck chairs, which is lovely. That's fine. And I have a mega brush to get rid of the cat hair. If I come out, they look at me, and they used to jump up and run away. Now they look at me and like, oh boy, she's a real pain in the ass, and they get up and saunter away. But they have this routine, and they do, I swear, listen to this conversation a little bit and then go back on their path. But they are clearly, I was thinking that, I'm watching them thinking, these cats know where it's at,
Little enlightened beings visiting you every morning. That's very cute.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. You have a magical garden, it sounds like.
They have a really good time. Oh well.
Cute. All right, let's start pranayama so we can move into meditation practice. So let's do bumblebee breath first. You can take your peace fingers over your eyes and your thumbs into your ears, inhaling deeply. Do some bellows breath. There's a focus on the inhale and exhale. So we'll start with 30. Inhale all the way. Exhale all the way. Inhale halfway. Inhale all the way. Retain the breath. Exhale all the way out. An alternate nostril breathing. So take your right hand, fold the peace fingers into the center of the palm. Close off your right nostril with your thumb. Inhale through the left. Closing off both. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Closing off both. Exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Closing off both. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Closing off both. Exhaling through the left. You can continue on as long as you need to get to a stable centered state and then move into meditation practice. Bringing hands to prayer, bowing the head. Namaste. Have a beautiful day, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.